Well, my grandparents, Bill and Jean Reese, she was an artist most of her life. My grandfather was a commercial fisherman. And she just started making baskets about a year before that. And she made it on her own. My grandfather went in the basement, made her mold. It came up. She wove a basket. And she goes to Nancy Chase to put a piece of ivory on it. And Nancy Chase said, "Who made your basket?" She goes, "I did." And Nancy Chase said, "I'll buy every one you make." And that's how she started. So during that year, I used to go scalloping with my grandfather. And I got kind of interested in the baskets. So they had me weave a basket. And that's all they showed me, is how to weave a basket. They didn't show me how to put the rims on or the handle or anything, because they firm believers, if you're going to learn it, you got to learn that yourself. So that's basically how I started. I had severe asthma when I was a kid, so it prevented me from doing a lot of the physical activities that a lot of other kids do. So when it came to the baskets, it just felt natural. I didn't get overwinded, and besides that, I was making money. And I do remember during that time when Morgan Levine, when I was at the Betty's Luncheonette counter, selling my little baskets and also being a soda jerk, Morgan Levine came in. He was going to start this new store called the Four Winds Craft Guild. And that was back in, I think, 71 when we first started talking. I got very, very lucky early because I made a deal with him to do the baskets. And some of our first customers were Frank Sinatra and Greta Garbo. So that got instant headlines. So here you're a kid at, at the time, maybe 13 and a half at the time, or 14, whatever it was. And, you got national attention. New York Times got a hold of it because when they first, the baskets back in the 70s were called the Nantucket Mink because all the ladies had it. I mean, instead of wearing a mink coat, they all had their baskets. And the reporter at the New York Times thought it was kind of funny, so he ridiculed it. Well, the ladies of New York didn't think it was so funny. So he ended up giving a public apology on the front page of the New York Times, which increased the fame of the baskets even more. I started making the baskets out at 4 Nobodere Way. There was a little chicken shack. So my grandfather's, we called them chicken shacks, but it was actually my grandfather's old shanties from the old South Wharf. And we put 2 of them together and made a shop out of it. And that's how I started. They were exactly the older style. Making, in the beginning, all my work was traditional. And that's what I found a little boring the more years I got into it, because everybody's already done that. I wanted to do stuff that other people hadn't done. Stephen had died, and I went to his shop a couple times while he was still alive. Matter of fact, he made some molds for me. Him and Old Man Sansbury, when I first started, they made me some molds. And so when I got to hang out in his shop, I got to see what real quality basket. I mean, he made I would call the Mercedes of baskets at the time. I mean, his was flawless. And to this day, his baskets do not go under a certain price because they're the most sought after basket. I mean, they even outrival Reyes's baskets for stamina, for one, but for quality, there's no question. So when he died, Sina asked me if I would help her finish his work, which gave me a better understanding exactly how he made all his baskets. Nicky Gambo was probably my biggest collector ever. Any big piece except for Last Dance behind you, she bought. And it didn't matter. I mean, we did the Nest of 12, that was the entire history of the island. There was scrimshot on it. I did a big fountain piece for her. Nest, both of my nests, all elaborate. 30, 40 different other pieces I made for her. I mean, when her and Dick Gamble came in, they were dressed down, so you never even knew who they were. You thought they were farmers from Nebraska or something. But, I mean, they came in and they loved the work and they spent it. And we've had a couple other good ones through the years, like Chuck Bazikian, who did the Christmas tree shots. He would come in, he had 3 daughters, he'd buy 3 of everything. Jackie Onassis was not only a client, she was a friend. She used to ditch her security guards a lot. And her and I'd come out to open my shop, and she'd be sitting on my step, and we'd go into the house and have some tea. Very nice lady, but very private, very private. I know when I was on Martha Stewart, she was trying to make me elaborate on her, and to this day, our relationship is still private. Because I had 3 or 4 times with her, totally alone, without any security or her whole entourage that would always be with her. Yeah, Lady Bird Johnson, that was the funniest we've ever did. The Secret Service comes in days ahead of time, sweeps the whole shop, does everything they're supposed to do. And we asked them, should we close the shop down so I don't disturb my other customers? They assured us, no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Well, this little lady, as I'm talking to Lady Bird, I got my eye on this lady coming down the driveway on her bicycle. And she just makes the porch, and the Secret Service just swarms her, goes through all her stuff and sends her away. To this day, I don't know who she was, but I know she's never been back at my shop. I'm sure she thought she got mugged. Dorothy O'Hara was not just a scrimshander. She was a true artist. Money meant nothing to her. But she had this really twisted genius mind, and we worked perfectly together because most people can't ever understand what I'm about to do. She was the only one that I could actually discuss it, and we would start drawing ideas out of how we're going to do it. So she was more than just a scrimshander. She was my partner, I would say, for 40-something years as my scrimshander, but she was much more than that. She was my creative partner. I had 2 gentlemen came in one time, and they wanted this sewing basket with a table, a 3-legged table. But they didn't say 3-legged at the time. They just wanted a double-tiered basket. So I drew this out, and they didn't like it at all. They wanted something totally different. So I kept the drawing, and then I drew it up to a cardboard, put it on the back of my door in my shop for about 3 years, just thought about it. And then one day, on a Sunday actually, I just dropped everything and started making the molds. And the molds themselves took weeks to do. And then the biggest one, when that was done, I actually cut the mold up to make the face or the back for that set of drawers that were in it. Because there was no other way to describe it. So I just cut the mold. I knew it would fit it perfectly. So I had something to put my mahogany to. This piece took about 4 years. And that's 4 years if you did 40 hours a week. I work 80 plus hours. So I always was working on my baskets to keep my living. But at the same time, I put at least 40 hours a week on this. And I even use brontosaurus bone for the little fizz. That's brontosaurus in there. So it just made it kind of unique. And I wanted to do something that nobody's ever done. Nobody's ever taken a cover and cut it in half. Then I spent over a month carving the 180 shells that line that one piece. So after I was done with that, I go, wow, you got all that work into that, but the rest of it looks plain. So every time I need to put the fancy handles on, and then everything was missing. So I decided I need the dolphins to push it up, make it look like it's holding the basket up. The lobster, I went to Mrs. Souza, never carved one in my life. So I'm the type of guy, I actually have to see something to carve it. So I had this 5-pound lobster walking on my desk for hours at a time. When it get tired, I put him back in the water and let him go for a little bit longer until there was no lobster left to be walking around. So we would boil him up and have some lobster salad sandwiches and go get another one. Went through about 2-3 lobsters. And that particular lobster was out of one big whale's tooth. And if you bought that tooth today, it'd be about $2,000-$3,000 just for the tooth. The essence of Nantucket just started out as we were just going to make a nest with the history of Nantucket. So Dorothy and my wife, Marcia, went down to the town. We got every bit out of the NHA that we could about different parts of Nantucket's history. And from the whaling to the lighthouses to even down to the flowers, what was on Nantucket on the flowers, or the way of life back in the 1800s. So every basket in there has something to do with Nantucket. It's part of Nantucket history. That's why it was called the Essence. Yeah, she got a patent on a kidney basket. So she had Trish Anderson making the kidneys, and she started pushing that we couldn't make kidneys. And was saying, why not? It's not like it's something unique. It's just a different shape. So, well, she ended up getting it, and it's about the first time all the basket makers came together and actually started talking as one unit. Because, quite frankly, there was nobody going to tell us we couldn't do something. So we all got together and said, this has got to stop. I mean, we know Reyes made, curved baskets, half moon baskets. I made kidney baskets for years before she got that patent. Now, all of a sudden, she got a patent? I'm going, no, I don't think so. So we all got together, and we got enough feedback from the summer community where I had 3 lawyers at the time who were actually patent lawyers. And one came to us and said, look, I'll take the case for nothing. Well, with that, we ended up getting on the front page of almost every major newspaper in the country about this patent. I mean, we were everywhere, even in the London Chronicle, London Times, I guess it was, but out to San Francisco, all of them front page news, Wall Street Journal. And make a long story short, we won. So we were going to do a fundraiser. So we decided we're going to have the show at the Fair Street Museum with the NHA. And I've always been under the belief it's not the material that makes the basket, it's how the basket is made, as long as it's made on the same standards of all the other baskets. So Kim England wove a gold basket, same way we did all the other baskets. And it was our opinion that it belonged in the show because it didn't matter what the medium was. It was still a light ship basket. She actually wove it the same exact way as we did. Well, unfortunately, the NHA didn't see it that way. Either did David Wood, who was the curator, but we did. So they took us to court on our own show. And we ended up winning because what I did, I had a 1943 or 45 Mitchie Ray open basket, which was woven out of plastic because during the war, you couldn't get the Kane. So we wove it out of plastic. So Carol Witt, being our attorney for the basket makers, put the basket in front of David Woods, and Sheik says, do you know who made this basket? And he said, yes, I do. And would you say that's an authentic basket? Yes, I would. Well, do you know it's made out of plastic? And it was dead silence because he just made our point for us. It didn't matter what the basket was made out of, as long as it was made to the same standards as a Nantucket Lightship basket. With that, it was done. The case was done. I think if you go back to the 1800s, what made Nantucket Lightship baskets so unique is because it all started with a hard bottom. Didn't matter whether it's oak, hickory, maple, or whatever, but it started with a hard bottom. And then there was a groove cut into the middle of it, and the staves came out of it. And that's basically what made Nantucket so unique, because they were sturdy baskets. The staves were either hickory or oak, and the rims were oak. There wasn't much rattan except for the weaving. So they're very useful baskets, whether it was used for going to the market, a piece in your living room for sewing, or your vegetable baskets or your laundry baskets. That's, basically what all the early baskets were for. They were made to be used. I think mine was the quality part and never being afraid to start something new. Like I've made almost every basket you can ever think of. I've even made Twisted where I had, there was this panel, I believe it was from your museum actually, that said what to look for in making a basket. It was straight staves, straight weave, straight this. And I started thinking about it. I go, who are they to tell me? So I made a Twisted basket. All my staves were crooked. I started with, instead of 1 weave, I started with 5, went up to 17 to get a big wave into the basket. And then even my rim, I went up and down, and just to make it, and I called it Twisted. And it was only because of, once again, people trying to tell you what is the most proper way to do it. I'm the type of person, if you tell me I can't do it, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I think I'm more of an artist than I am a basket maker, because I love putting art onto the baskets. And I really like all my pieces to be individual art pieces for the person. I don't really like it when somebody will come in and they just want a traditional piece. I find that very boring. But if they want to challenge me and put something that they want, I know they'll appreciate it more. They'll take care of it more. It was basically the same group of basket makers that we fought Glen Ann, and we decided to make a little association. So we used to meet at this kitchen table of mine in my living room, and we decided if we're going to stay association, shouldn't we do something good? So we decided, it should be our goal to make our own museum. And that's where it started. It started right at my kitchen table. Manny Dias, Warren Grisky, Dick Safranek, Carl. I forget, there was a bunch of people that were there. And it just started out slow. And then, so we did a couple more fundraisers, and we made like $10,000 or $15,000. And we thought it'd be a good idea to give $5,000 to the African Meeting House because it hadn't started being renovated yet. So we were one of the first ones that started that renovation process for the African Meeting House. We gave a portion of our proceeds toward it. And then the rest we just started accumulating until we had enough money to actually buy a museum. If you wanted a very truthful answer if the baskets are going to stay, I would say it's a dying industry. I've been at this for 50 years. I've seen every change. I haven't seen a new group of basket makers coming in. My son is like the only third generation basket maker. But I don't see it because, for one, everybody's teaching it now. So there's no more exclusivity. It's just everybody that gets taught, they teach 10 other people. So you always see the baskets going on a downhill thing. Will I be busy as long as I wanted? Yeah, I could be. Do I see it going way in the future? I don't know. I feel for my son right now because he wants to make a living at it. But I just don't know if it's going to work. June 9th, 1969, at the Boys Club, where I got my first kiss. And we've been together ever since. She actually came and helped me making baskets for Morgan Levine back in like the early 70s when I started with Morgan Levine at the Craft Guild, because he would give you a list and, there'd be like 50 baskets on it. So I would hired her because I got all the bennies. I got to kiss her and, have my girl working with me. And we've basically worked together our whole life. Well, 8 years ago, Peter Finch made the bracelet. I don't know if you remember that, which was just the two ends. And I called him up. I was down in Florida, and I made this with a piece of ivory right in the middle of the piece and made it different than his. So I called him up. I go, Peter, I'm not going to copy you, but I just made this bracelet that I really like. It's going to have nothing to do with you. It's not even going to be around your price point. Do you mind if I make it? And Peter says, you're the first one that's ever asked me. I go, well, I don't like stepping on toes, but mine's going to look nothing like yours. And I did. So I made it for Marcia. She put it on Facebook. Within a month, I had 10 orders. Well, that's been almost 9 years ago now. And might be closer to 10. And in the summertime, that's basically all I make. I want to start traveling with Marcia a little bit more. When we were younger, we used to travel all over the world. So I basically want to pick up where we left off for a little bit, because we spent all that time raising our kids and, doing the right stuff. And as a basket maker, I've always loved what I was doing. I really have. I've enjoyed the last 50 years. But unfortunately, my clock is going the other way, and I don't want to be behind that desk when I die. I want to start doing something. So I have no regrets being a basket maker. I thought it was and I still do think it's a very honorable profession. But I remember back in the 80s and 90s when you walked down the street, everybody would shake your hand. Oh, Mike, it's really good to see you. And now nobody even knows who you are. And that's the hard part. That's where I'm thinking that the basket business is going the other way. Because it used to be, you were the basket maker. And, not that it means much to other people, but it did to me. Because I put my heart and soul into baskets.